The clock ticked softly in the small therapy room. Nathan sat still, staring at the carpet instead of his wife's face. 14 years of marriage pressed down on his chest like weight. Lauren offered a careful smile that never reached her eyes. He told himself this session would change everything for them. Just one honest conversation could fix what was broken. But silence grew heavy, sharp, and uncomfortable between them. When the therapist stepped out, the air instantly felt colder. Lauren stood up and moved toward the half-closed door. Her voice dropped to a whisper he was never meant to hear. "I'm doing exactly what you said. Everything is on track." Cold fear slid through Nathan's spine at her quiet words. He reached for his phone, hands shaking without control. And in that moment, the truth began to record itself. Nathan held his breath as her footsteps faded down the hallway. He stayed perfectly still, afraid even the smallest sound might betray him. Through the half-closed door, Lauren's voice slipped into the quiet room. It was calm, measured, and far too confident for someone in therapy. "Yes, I'm playing the part perfectly," she whispered into her phone. "No one suspects a thing, especially not him." Each word struck him harder than any shouted confession could. "I've been going to every session and acting cooperative," she continued. "That will look great in court when I file." Nathan felt his stomach tighten with every passing second. "She still thinks this is about fixing the marriage," she laughed softly. "In a few weeks, the judge will see me as the victim. The house is the main goal, and I won't walk away without it." Her tone carried no guilt, no hesitation, only cold calculation. Nathan's hands trembled as he unlocked his phone beneath the chair. With shaking fingers, he pressed the small red record button. His heart pounded so loudly he feared she might hear it. "I want full control of the assets and steady support payments," she said. "He's emotionally weak and easy to manipulate," she added. The man on the other end murmured approval he could not quite hear. Lauren responded with a quiet, confident, almost victorious sigh. "This plan is foolproof. It's working exactly as we designed it." Nathan felt the room spin, but he forced himself to stay focused. He needed every word, every breath, every hidden intention. "This is just a waiting game now," Lauren continued. "Once the paperwork is filed, it will all be over for him." Her footsteps grew closer as she ended the call. Nathan quickly locked his phone and slipped it back into his pocket. He lifted his eyes just as she stepped back into the room. Her face had changed into a soft, concerned expression. "Everything okay?" she asked, pretending nothing had happened. Nathan stared at the woman he thought he had known for years. In that instant, the truth became painfully clear. His marriage had already ended somewhere long before this moment. He simply had not been invited to know about it. Lauren returned to her seat, placing her hands neatly on her lap. "We were just making some progress, I think," she said sweetly. Nathan nodded slowly, hiding the storm inside him. He felt anger, betrayal, and an unexpected clarity. This was no longer about saving their relationship. This was about protecting himself from her lies. The door opened as the therapist walked back inside. "Are we ready to continue?" the therapist asked gently. Nathan took a deep breath before answering. "Yes," he said quietly, eyes never leaving Lauren's face. "More than ready." Nathan sat in silence, letting the last echoes of her voice settle in his mind. He no longer heard a wife trying to save a marriage. He heard an enemy carefully planning his downfall. The therapist looked between them, sensing the sudden shift. "Would either of you like to start today's session?" she asked. Nathan slowly reached into his pocket and pulled out his phone. Lauren's eyes followed the movement, curious but unconcerned. "I think there's something you should hear first," he said quietly. He placed the phone on the table and pressed play. Lauren's whispered voice filled the room within seconds. "I'm playing the part perfectly. No one suspects anything." The air seemed to thicken with every word spoken from the speaker. Lauren froze, her face drained of all color. "That's not what it sounds like," she blurted out. "You've taken it completely out of context." But the recording continued, cruel and unstoppable. "The house is the main goal, and I won't walk away without it." The therapist's expression shifted from calm to stunned. She sat back in her chair, staring at Lauren in disbelief. "When was this recorded?" she asked carefully. "Just moments before you came back into the room," Nathan replied. Lauren opened her mouth, but no words came out. The evidence had already spoken for her. "I can't continue this session under these circumstances," the therapist said. "This goes beyond marital conflict and into legal territory." Nathan nodded, feeling a strange clarity wash over him. He stood up without another glance at Lauren. Outside, the air felt colder but also cleaner somehow. He stepped into his car and immediately called his lawyer. "Daniel, I need to see you today," he said firmly. "It's urgent and it's serious." An hour later, he sat in a quiet office lined with law books. Daniel listened carefully as Nathan played the recording again. He leaned back in his chair, eyes thoughtful and sharp. "Do you know how powerful this is?" Daniel asked. "If this was recorded legally, it changes everything." "She admitted to manipulation and financial intent," he added. "She destroyed her own case in 5 minutes." Nathan let out a breath he'd been holding for weeks. "So what happens now?" he asked. "Now you go on the offensive," Daniel replied. "We file for divorce immediately, with this as evidence. We request protection of assets and full rights to the house. For the first time, you control the narrative." Nathan stared at the table, absorbing the weight of those words. Control was something he had not felt in a long time. "Let's do it," he said without hesitation. By the end of the day, the paperwork had begun. Lauren called him again and again, but he let it ring. Her messages shifted from panic to anger to pleading. "You're making a mistake," one text read. "You're misunderstanding everything," another followed. Nathan deleted each one without replying. That chapter of his life was closing. What remained was the fight to finish it properly. Lauren did not stay silent for long after the papers were filed. Her calls began early in the morning and lasted into the night. Nathan watched the screen light up again and again with her name. He never answered, no matter how fast his heart was beating. Then the messages started to change in tone and intention. At first, they were filled with apologies and soft words. "I never meant to hurt you the way this looks," she wrote. "I was scared of losing everything and said stupid things." Minutes later, the kindness was replaced by sharp accusations. "You're trying to destroy my life over one private call. You're proving everything I said right about you." Then came the threats, carefully written and full of spite. "My lawyer says you will regret taking this path. You won't walk away as clean as you think." Nathan saved every message without replying once. He forwarded each one to Daniel in silent confirmation. A few days later, something darker began to happen. Nathan's supervisor asked him into a private meeting. A complaint had been filed anonymously against him. It accused him of harassment and emotional abuse. The timing was too perfect to be a coincidence. Nathan felt anger rise, but he stayed calm. He handed over the recording and the legal timeline. The company's legal team quickly saw the truth. The complaint was marked as retaliation and dismissed. That only pushed Lauren further into desperation. She reported her credit cards as stolen by him. She claimed unauthorized purchases across state lines. Banks and investigators contacted Nathan for statements. Each time, the recording cleared his name again. Then, without warning, a restraining order appeared. It stated that he was a danger to her safety. The accusation felt like a final betrayal. But Daniel was already more than prepared. He submitted the recording with the official response. The judge rejected the restraining order within minutes. Lauren's power was slipping through her fingers. Her final attempt came in the form of emotion. She appeared at the end of Nathan's street one night. Tears streamed down her face as she called his name. "I'm sorry for everything," she cried out. "I was scared, and I made horrible choices." Neighbors watched through their windows in silence. Nathan stood on his porch without moving closer. "I trusted you with my life," he said calmly. "And you turned it into a strategy." She fell to her knees, begging for forgiveness. But forgiveness was not what he felt anymore. All that remained was clarity and self-respect. "You should leave before I call the police," he said. Lauren slowly rose and walked away into the dark. That was the last time she came near his home. In court records, texts, and recordings, her image shifted. She was no longer seen as a victim. She was revealed as the architect of deception. And Nathan, once silent and unsure, stood protected by truth. The courtroom was silent as Nathan took his seat. He felt every eye turn toward him, and then to Lauren. She sat across the room, her face carefully composed. Daniel leaned slightly forward and placed a hand on the table. "This is where everything changes," he whispered. The judge entered, and the entire room rose in unison. When everyone sat again, the air felt heavier. The judge reviewed the files with slow concentration. "Mr. Harris, you may proceed," he said to Daniel. Daniel stood, calm and precise in his movements. "We would like to present critical audio evidence," he stated clearly. Lauren's attorney shifted uncomfortably in his chair. Daniel pressed a button, and the recording filled the courtroom. Lauren's voice echoed through the silent hall. "I'm playing the part perfectly. He suspects nothing." Gasps moved quietly through the audience. "I want the house and the support payments." Lauren's fingers gripped the edge of the table. The judge raised a hand for silence. The recording continued, without mercy or compassion. "My goal is to leave him with nothing." Daniel stopped the audio and stepped back. Lauren stared at the floor, unable to move. Her attorney leaned in and whispered something urgently. The judge's expression shifted from neutral to stern. "Mrs. Cooper, do you deny making these statements?" Lauren hesitated, her lips parting slightly. "I was under emotional stress at the time," she said. "I didn't mean what I said." The judge looked unimpressed by her response. "Intent is clearly demonstrated in this recording," he replied. He adjusted the papers before him with slow precision. "The restraining order request is hereby denied." A wave of relief passed through Nathan's chest. Lauren's face tightened as control slipped away. "The court also recognizes attempted manipulation," the judge continued. He looked directly at Lauren over his glasses. "This behavior affects all future considerations in this case." Daniel nodded slightly, already anticipating the outcome. "The plaintiff is advised to seek exclusive rights to the home," the judge added. Nathan lowered his eyes, overwhelmed by the moment. The balance of power had shifted completely. Lauren's attorney requested a brief private discussion. They turned away, whispering in hurried panic. When they returned, her confidence was gone. "We request the option of mediation," her attorney said. The judge considered it for a brief moment. "Mediation is granted," he concluded. "Proceed with caution and honesty from this point forward." The gavel struck sharply against the wood. And with that sound, Nathan knew something had ended. The mediation room felt colder than the courtroom had been. Nathan sat on one side of the long table in silence. Lauren sat opposite him, avoiding his eyes. The mediator glanced at the thick folder of evidence. "I will be very direct in this situation," he stated. "The recording has removed much of your leverage." Lauren swallowed hard but said nothing. "If this goes to trial, you risk losing almost everything." Her hands trembled as they rested on the table. "I just want what's fair," she muttered without conviction. "Fairness is no longer determined by what you feel," he replied. "It is determined by what you planned and admitted. Nathan remained still, listening, breathing slowly. What are the current terms? The mediator asked Daniel. Daniel adjusted his glasses and spoke clearly. My client will retain full ownership of the home. He will not provide spousal support of any kind. Lauren's eyes widened in sudden panic. That's impossible. I gave years of my life, she said. And he gave trust, the mediator answered sharply. You compromised that willingly. Lauren pressed her lips together, fighting back tears. What about a settlement payment? She asked quietly. Daniel paused for a moment before answering. There will be a single lump sum offer, he said. $85,000, no more, no less. Silence hung between them like a final judgment. Lauren looked down at her hands in defeat. And the car and retirement account, she asked. You will keep both in full, the mediator confirmed. But there will be no future claims of support. Nathan lifted his eyes to meet hers for the first time. This is the only way this ends peacefully, he said. Lauren searched his face for any sign of softness. But she found only resolve and distance. I don't have a choice, do I? She whispered. You made your choice a long time ago, he replied. Tears slipped silently down her cheeks. Her attorney leaned closer and spoke under his breath. Accept it, he instructed without emotion. With a shaking hand, Lauren picked up the pen. She paused for one final moment. The room seemed to hold its breath with her. Then she signed her name at the bottom of the page. The mediator took the document and nodded once. This agreement is now legally binding, he announced. Nathan released a quiet breath of relief. Lauren's shoulders slumped as reality settled in. The plan she believed was perfect had collapsed. All that remained was the truth on paper, and the silence of everything she had lost. The house felt strangely quiet after the final signatures were filed. Nathan stood in the doorway and looked at the empty driveway. Lauren's car was gone, and with it, the last trace of her presence. Inside, the rooms echoed with memories that no longer had power. He walked slowly through the hallway, touching the faded walls. Each step felt like reclaiming a piece of himself. For the first time in years, he could breathe freely. No accusations hung in the air. No forced smiles waited around the corner. Only silence, honest and clean. He opened the windows and let the cold air rush in. It felt like the world was washing itself through the rooms. That afternoon, he called a local contractor. I'm ready to start renovating, he said simply. A new floor for the living room was scheduled. Fresh paint for the bedroom was selected. He chose light colors, open and calm. He wanted nothing that reminded him of the past. Friends began to stop by to offer quiet support. They noticed a change in his posture and voice. You look different, one of them remarked. I feel different, Nathan answered. Legal papers arrived, in the mail confirming everything. The house was officially and solely his. No shared claims. No future disputes. Daniel called to congratulate him on the outcome. You handled this better than most ever could, he said. It wasn't strength, Nathan replied softly. It was survival. Even the therapist reached out one final time. You trusted your instincts when it mattered, she wrote. That saved you. Days turned into weeks, and weeks into months. The house slowly transformed into a new beginning. Laughter returned in small, unexpected moments. Music played where silence once lived. One evening, Nathan sat on the porch at sunset. The sky burned orange and gold across the horizon. He realized he no longer felt anger toward Lauren. He felt distance, and distance felt like freedom. He had lost 14 years to manipulation, but he had gained the rest of his life in return. In another city, Lauren struggled to adjust. The money she received faded faster than she expected. The narrative she once controlled had disappeared. People saw the truth in the records she could not erase. But Nathan did not follow her story anymore. He had closed that chapter without looking back. What mattered was the present. A home rebuilt not just in wood, but in truth. A man restored not by revenge, but by clarity. And the quiet knowledge that no lie lasts forever. Nathan stood in the middle of the living room, one last time. Sunlight poured through the new windows, filling every corner. The house no longer felt like a battlefield of memories. It felt like a quiet promise of something better ahead. He realized he had stopped listening for her footsteps. He had stopped expecting an argument behind every door. Peace had slowly replaced the tension in his chest. For the first time in years, he trusted his own mind. He trusted the silence, and he trusted the future. The past had tried to break him, but it had failed. It had only revealed how strong he truly was. He poured himself a cup of coffee and sat by the window. The world outside moved on, unaware of his private victory. He watched people pass, each carrying their own hidden battles. Nathan knew now that truth always finds its way out. No lie can hide forever from the weight of reality. He had been tested, betrayed, and nearly destroyed. Yet he was still standing, still breathing, still free. And in that quiet moment, he finally felt whole again.